Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this. This is MMA AM. It's half morning show, half mixed martial arts show, pretty much all bullshit. I am LK from Kocosports.net. That's KOCO Sports.net. It's where the world goes to kick ass, showing for combat sports and above all, where it's okay to be a passionate fan. And I'm joined by new logo themselves, Kyle from the Loudmouth MMA podcast. I really dig your new logo. I'm in the process of creating a new one because I got WrestleAM got a new logo created to me about literally an hour ago. It was strange. You uploaded your new logo and I got a new wrestling one. And I asked my graphics guy to also produce me an MMA AM. But your new logo looks good. Much upgrade. I'm not saying the one you had before was bad. It just is a nice upgrade and screams what your show's all about. And welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, that was man, I wish I could remember his company. I think it's NOP Media. I'm almost positive. The guy's name was Eric Satt. So hopefully I'm right about all that. And shout out to him. Here, I need to not lean. I'm like leaning over to try to get close to my microphone, but you can probably hear me just fine. But yeah, so shout out to him, NOP Media. They did a great job. I didn't give him any kind of direction. I just said I want a white background, and that was all I told him, and that's what he came up with. So that's great. That's one of my favorite things, man. I like just to let people do what they're going to do. You know, let the creative minds be creative. Don't try to guide them and tell them be nitpicky. Just like, hey, man, I just want a white background because it looks better when you scroll on social media. A white background just looks better because it blends with the page. But other than that, dude, go to town, whatever you want to do. And that's what he did. So it looks great.
Agreed, and mine's the same. I use at Mateo TC. He's a long-time listener of the show, and he's really good at logos. And he's like, I have nothing else to do. I can create a logo. So I appreciate and shout out to Mateo TC. He's really great logo. And if you are looking for a logo and you're out there, check him out on Twitter. And if you can't, he'll always be in the comments below. So that in mind, we are here to talk about, this is like, I felt like, is there anything else you want to talk about apart from UFC Halifax? Because this is the 5th time this week I'm talking about the damn
know.
thing.
I don't know how you do it, man. I can't. I talked about this card on Monday for my news show. I kind of combined the recap this week with Keith, and just for it's hard to explain why. But anyway, I just combined it, and that's enough for me. But I love coming on the show, so I'll talk about it. I don't care. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of news going on in the UFC. We could talk about that at some point. Obviously, UFC 209 is right around the corner. We'll talk about it again, obviously, next Friday. We'll probably do like a preview. That's going to be a great card, man. Oh, that is going to be a great card. I am so excited.
And I'm glad I've got the weekend off from MMA because then it makes me even more excited for the Saturday after. And the next weekend, I have Saturday and Sunday both off work. And on Saturday, there's an MMA pay-per-view. And on Sunday, there's a wrestling pay-per-view. So I'm extremely excited for that. So UFC Halifax, I can't believe I'm going to say this again. What were your thoughts on the show?
As a whole, my thoughts were, I think it was a pretty good card. There wasn't anything that was terribly surprising. I thought Gavin, we'll get to probably each individual fight, but yeah, I would say just as a whole, it was a good card. As a whole, it was better than UFC 208 for whatever that's worth. And I think I was listening to your show with Blake this week. I try to listen to yours as soon as they come on iTunes. So I listened to your one with Blake, and I think you both kind of said the same thing. Which we got to get to. One of the points you made on the show with Blake, I want to talk about Derek Lewis and whether that's good for the sport or bad for the sport.
Yeah,
I sponsors. I want to talk about that with you. I think we need to open that conversation back up because there were some things that
you didn't like.
So first of all, I agree with you. So let me just get that out of the way. I 100% agree with you. I am on your side, man. I think that now. It's hard because, okay, you see this with disc golf. Have you ever heard of disc golf? Is that something that's even in your vernacular? Okay, so there's this sport called disc golf. Okay, I play it. I'm an avid player. In fact, all my ace discs are sitting over my chair over there. Ace is where you get like a hole-in-one. But so it's the rules of golf. Okay, here's the simplest way to explain it. It's the rules of golf. So if you know how golf works, you want the lowest possible score. The only difference is, right, instead of hitting a ball with a club, you're using your arm to throw something that's like a frisbee. So you know what a frisbee is. It's something that's like a frisbee. It's not quite a frisbee. It's much heavier. It's much more aerodynamic. And you're just in golf, right? The ball is the energy source, right? Not the energy source, but the thing that the energy source is coming up to. And then the golf club would be the lever, right? So in disc golf, your arm and body is the lever, and you're throwing this disc and trying to get into a pin, which is like a little basket with chains on it, and the lowest amount of throws. So there you go. I just explained disc golf to you. One of the things that they're experiencing disc golf is they're trying to grow. They're trying to become a sport that's televised and that people are taking serious. And in doing so, the disc golfers are starting to wear like polos, right? For all of the major tournaments, they wear polos. There's no smoking. There's no drinking, which was huge in disc golf. That's what disc golf came about. Disc golf came about to be the anti-golf, right? It was by a bunch of yuppies, a bunch of hippies who were looking at all these rich golfers and saying, hey, let's be the antithesis of that, right? Let's drink and smoke and play this golf-like game, but not act like our butts are sewn tight, right? So that's what brought disc golf about. So now they're having a really tough time trying to go mainstream because everyone's going, yeah, but we've always done it this way. We've always smoked on a course. We've always just worn whatever we want, right? We've never had to watch what we're saying, right? So there's a lot of pushback. And you're going to see that obviously with MMA or with UFC specifically. There's going to be this pushback. Why can't Derek Lewis get on the microphone and say that he was holding his belly because he had to take a shit, right? Like, why can't Derek Lewis get on the microphone and say, where's Ronda Rousey's ass at, whatever, right? Like, why can't he do that? That's what, normally that's okay. The problem is, and this is the point that you were making, which I think is an extremely valid point, is that if you're going to continue to treat the sport that way, if you're going to continue to just let these people in the media and on Fox, and eventually I think UFC is going to be on ABC and NBC and ESPN and all that. If you're going to continue to let fighters just do goofy stuff after the fights or these post-fight pressers and stuff, and not have any type of governing body to keep them from just saying nonsense without any type of repercussions, you're not going to get big sponsors. It's going to be, again, I loved your points. You're going to have Bud Light forever. That's going to be your number one sponsor is Bud Light. Well, that can't be your goal. Your goal needs to be Pepsi. That needs to be your goal. Your goal needs to be, we want Pepsi. We want Verizon. We don't want Boost Mobile. Who in the hell I don't know a single person who uses Boost Mobile. I've never met a single person in my life who uses Boost Mobile, ever. So you don't want Boost Mobile. You want Verizon. That's what you're going for. But everyone's so stuck in right now, and they're stuck in, yeah, but it's fun. Yeah, it's fun. Families aren't going to sit around and watch that, right? So in football, if someone did that same thing after a game, they would get fined $20,000. Now, here's one of the problems, and this is the point that didn't get brought up. These fighters don't make very much money. So good luck. Good luck trying to police them, because the reason why you can police NFL as much as you do is because those people are making millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. These UFC fighters are not. Many of these fighters aren't making much more than $10,000 per fight. So, yeah, I mean, so it would be really, really hard to tell a guy who you're paying pennies, like, oh, yeah, and you also have to watch your mouth, and you also have to do this. Oh, and here's the company line, and here's the thing you have to plug when you're done. And it's hard enough getting them to wear the Reebok stuff. But yeah, I mean, when it's all said and done, I don't think a lot of these fighters, especially making their debut or kind of early on in their career, they're not making much more than $25,000, I would say, per fight. And sometimes you can only fight twice a year. Hell, we make more than $50,000 a year. You know what I mean? Like, that's not that much money, and I'm not taking any of the amount of damage they're taking, and I'm not paying all those camp costs. I'm not paying for more expensive food because they care about. I don't care what's going in my body. They do. They have to. It's part of their job. So yeah, I mean, that's the hard part. So that's where we'd have to figure out, you'd have to start paying these fighters more. Once you started paying them more, then, but again, if you're sponsored by Coke, you can afford to pay your fighters more, right? Because Coke is going to pay a hell of a lot more than Bud Light is. So, Verizon's going to pay a hell of a lot more than Boost Mobile is. Instead of Reebok, like, let's get, I don't know, something that's bigger than Reebok. I don't know what's bigger than Reebok.
Nike or Adidas
Nike,
or something like that.
Yeah, Nike, right? I mean, Nike would be huge. That would be a massive one. That's a way bigger brand than Reebok. So
I refuse to wear Reebok. In England, especially in where I live, there's lots of old people in the south. In England, in the south where I live, like I've been to an estate agent before because on my work placement, I did estate agency, and I went there, and then they were like, "Okay, right, I'm going to be straight with you. You're going to get lots of old people in because this is the place where people come to die." Like that's what they refer it to as. So when we were there, and I was like, "Okay, where they come to die?" And then it was like on UFC's website, it's Reebok. Now, Reebok in the UK is known as the chavvy, kind of hardcore thugs, spitting on the floor kind of guys. I don't want to walk around with Reebok because I'll scare half the fucking neighborhood if I'm wearing Reebok.
That's funny. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, Reebok is very chavvy, so to speak. Like their shoes are very chavvy, and they're like if you see someone with Reebok, you're like, okay, I know a lot about that guy, judging by the fact he's wearing Reebok. There's a huge, huge difference. But, they will do it one day. Hopefully they do it. But it's just getting those fighters to do it. Like you said, that'll be the difficult part. And Keith from the MMA Takeover was on last night. He practically agreed, but said it'll be difficult, like you said, to get these fighters to do it because they're not going to. But if they get enough money to, say, for example, say they get an extra 100,000 a year because they're now with Pepsi, or maybe 200,000, and then they could say, look, we'll take that. We'll give like $1,000 to each fighter on every card. Every card, okay, $1,000, 1,000. If you said to a guy, I'll give you $1,000 to not swear, you wouldn't swear. For an extra grand, would you swear? Or if someone came up and said, look, I'll give you £1,000 per podcast. Okay, well, that's not fair because we do like daily, multi-dailies or weeks, so I don't count. I'll give you £1,000 every 3 months if you don't curse or swear on your show. I'll take that. If they said £1,000, of course I would. Why wouldn't I? To not curse, it's an easy thing to do. And that's what? 2-3 grand a year for not swearing. That's easy money. That's money for not doing anything. I really reckon they should, but I never think they will. And I think it was Blake or Keith, one of them. They said that, families don't want to watch MMA. And I think that's right. I don't agree with that because
I just disagree.
That is a complete disagree because kids watch boxing, kids watch pro wrestling. They're violent. They watch films that involve fighting and brawling. Kids' films. There's even like cartoons with fighting in these days. So kids would watch MMA if given the chance. And if the parents feel like, okay, they're going to go on there, there's going to be no cursing, no swearing, no sex. Like Derek Lewis saying, oh yeah, I'm going to have a rest because I had too much sex. Like, you don't want your kid hearing that because then like what's sex, whereas if it's like, oh daddy, he fucked him up, it's like, yes, they can fight only in the cage. Like simple as.
Now granted, what Derek Lewis did is the exception and not the rule, so I don't want to get too hyper focused in what he did is not normal. That's not the norm. But the other thing to kind of address the thing about families not watching UFC, I think it's true to a point, but again, you're talking about right now. Right now, that's the case. What your ultimate goal is for that not to be the reality. The UFC's goal is let's get families to watch UFC, right? So even if, let's just say Blake and Keith are right, which I don't necessarily think they are. I think younger and younger people are watching UFC. I think younger and younger people are now going to dojos and they're getting involved in local whether it's karate or taekwondo or something. I think that's really becoming a much bigger thing and has been for a while. But anyway, let's just say that is the case. Let's just say that families don't watch UFC together, or Bellator, or just MMA in general. That's what the UFC is trying to change. In order to change that, the stuff that you're talking about has to become mandated. So it can't just be suggested. right, when he was doing that, when Derek Lewis was doing whatever he was doing, which was great, by the way, I loved it. Like, that's not even what the point is. I thought it was hilarious. But I do think that, like, in the long run, like, that can't become the norm. We cannot let that happen after fights. Like, it's not a good look for the sport. It's going to really stymie growth. But anyway, so that if that is the case, that's what the UFC is trying to change. They're trying to get families to sit down and watch the UFC like they do in football. And I don't know who brought it up. Somebody I was talking to brought this up. Look at where all these UFC events have been this year. And you may not have caught on to this, just because I doubt you really watch American football.
Oh,
but
horrible sport.
I love it. But so you had UFC Houston. You have, what else was there this year in the country? I don't remember. You had UFC Houston. Boy, oh boy, I really wish this would come to me really quick, but it's not going to. So I'll just skip past it. You had UFC coming up. You have UFC in Nashville. You have UFC in Missouri, in Kansas City. There's also been other ones that also fit what I'm about to say. What all of those places have in common, they all have professional football teams. I don't know why.
But then doesn't every state have a football team, though? Doesn't every single state have a football team?
So first of all, no, because, well, there's 50 states and there's only 16 teams, or there's only 32 teams. But anyway, so first of all, no. But more importantly, and some states have more than one, but more importantly, the cities that they're going to within the states are the cities that have the football teams. So it's the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to Kansas City. It's the Houston Texans. They went to Houston. It's the Tennessee Titans, which is based out of Nashville. That's where they're going for that event. And again, every single event leading up to this has also followed that same exact rule. So if there was any question as to where the UFC is trying to go, that question has been answered. So, because it's really obvious. Like, they're obviously trying to tap into the football market, because the football market is a billions on billion dollar industry. And the UFC, well, yes, sold for $4.5 billion, isn't there, and it's not even close. They're not even a twinkle in football's eye as far as the amount of money that they're making. But football is on the decline. All last year was on the decline, and the UFC is definitely on trending upward. So, you know, there's a chance you can poach a lot of those people, but you have to change the culture. There's no way around it. The UFC is going to continue to change, and guys like Keith, and I feel bad for guys like Keith, guys who've been watching the UFC since the beginning. No, I'm being for real. I do. I feel bad. Like, he's been watching the UFC since the beginning, and in the next 2 years, he's not even going to be able to recognize the sport. You know, it's going to be so dramatically different than what the UFC was, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be in a good way as far as avid fans are concerned. I think the betting lines of these fights are going to get ridiculous, because they're going to start kind of having a boxing model where I think they're going to build up superstars by putting them in fights that are going to be like just unnecessary lines. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of these fights are going to be 1,000-point favorites. I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of that. You've even seen it this year. A lot of these fight cards, there's a reason why I think we're predicting so many of these fights right, because a lot of these fights that have happened so far this year don't make any sense. Like, why? Why is Tim Boetsch fighting Jacare Souza? What? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, some of them are just absurd. But yeah, I just kind of ranted for a long time there, but you have to change the culture. You have to be willing to say, yes, this is how the UFC got to where it is, right? The UFC got to where it was by being dirty and being brash and being this bloody and don't give a fuck kind of sport, right? That's how it got here. But that only is going to get you so far. Again, like you said, that gets you to Bud Light. Okay, doing that attitude, that rawness, that grit, that's what gets you to Bud Light. And congratulations. Pat yourself on the back. Hardcore pat yourself on the back, because you got Bud Light. But if you want to get past Bud Light, you have to change. You have to pivot. And UFC fans need to be on board for that, because in the long run, it is going to help the sport, because it's going to pump a lot more money into it. It's going to bring a lot more kids to it, which means a lot of prospects, right? That's really what that means.
Yep.
If a lot of kids get involved, is a lot of kids are going to be in this promotion later on. And yeah, I don't know what else I could say about that. But I do love what Derek Lewis did. I'm a huge fan. I got no problem.
Yeah, I found it funny. It was funny. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I found it funny. It just hit me like, you shouldn't be saying that on that. If this was on pay, like, you could literally do this. You could have pay-per-view, and you could make it seem like a big deal. Okay, it's going to be uncut. It's on pay-per-view, and then just do these Fox shows. Make them just be like, okay, kind of parp it down. You could be like that on the pay-per-view. You could be like that on Fight Pass press conference. You could be like that on the Fight Pass weigh-in or the build-up on the press conference. But when you're on Fox, zip it, and there's £1,000.
Agreed. I agree. You know, I don't know how we get there, but I 100% agree.
See, look, this is why Dana White needs to pay me to come on his committee team.
Well, the problem is he's not any better, man. I don't know if you saw him on Twitter again the other day, arguing with people, telling children that they're stupid via Twitter. I mean, he's not any better. You know what I mean? That's part of the problem as far as a systemic cultural change is concerned, right? If he's at the helm, that's not going to happen. You know, you're not going to have a systemic cultural change under the McMahon family either. At least not really.
Fuck them. They could get. They fucking. Can we not? Now I'm in a bad mood talking about Vince.
I know nothing about wrestling, so don't even do it, because I'll just nod my head.
They do make so much money now because they're PG, but the only difference is they can't swear, even though they call each other bitch and pissed off. They still say it. That you can still say it. But when you say it, it has more impact, because you're like, oh my god, it's a PG show. He actually said that. And the kid's like, oh my god, look, he said that. He must really hate him. So when it can be used, then it'll work well. But how the fuck we just went 26 minutes talking about that is just out of this world.
Hopefully, it wasn't horrifically boring to listen to.
I was entertained, so that's all that matters. I enjoyed it.
I want to circle back to something real quick. You said Chaffee,
sure,
earlier. Was it Chavi?
Chavy, like Chav. Chavy.
Okay, yeah. Can you explain? So I'm looking at Chav, CHAV on Urban Dictionary right now.
Yeah, read it out.
Says picture this: a young lad about 12 years of age, 4.5 feet high baseball cap, 90 degrees, imitation Adidas tracksuit with trouser legs tucked into his socks. This lad is strutting around, fag in one hand, which I guess is cigarette, jewelry all over, outside of McDonald's, acting like he is 8 feet tall and built like a rugby player. Is this all accurate? Is this Chav?
No, that is a Chav.
Some poor, unsuspecting
So people
adult.
who wear... Yeah. So that's what Reebok people wear in the South. If you see anyone in the South with Reebok, do one.
That's hilarious. That is hilarious. All right, what else? There's more to it there. There's more to it, but yeah, I think I understand. I'm trying to think of what we would call those people. Like what? I guess just like that's like a thug. I guess I guess that's what that terminology would mean. Okay, that's funny. So now Chav, I like that a lot. The example sentence is my mate has become a Chav. What can I do? Answer is shoot him before it's too late.
Oh shit! I wasn't meant to reply it online. No. Anything else happened on the news? Because fuck this UFC Halifax. What happened in the news this week?
Right? Oh man. Well, GSP. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. I know you haven't watched UFC for that long, but it's a pretty big deal. I mean, as I'm sure you're aware, that GSP is back. They're trying to figure out his opponent. If you listen to the news podcast this week, you heard Keith and I trying to figure it out. What I can I'm nearly there. Don't spoil it. I won't. What I can tell you is that of the names we listed, it's got to be one of those names. I can't imagine that anyone, we didn't mention anyone. I mean, we had to have listed every single possible opponent. So he's fighting one of those people, and at the end of the day, I'm okay with whatever it is. There's definitely things I prefer over the other, but that's probably one of the biggest things to come out on this fight card. I mean, let me just say real quick. Let me do like a 60-second thing here, just going through the entire card. Mearshart looked fantastic. I mean, getting that arm bar as quickly as he did is just absolutely incredible. Santos looked exactly how he was supposed to look. Conversely, Zahabi did not look how he was supposed to look. That is not what I think anybody was expecting. When he was kind of winning on the feet, his movement was incredible. I really enjoyed his movement. I really enjoyed the footwork. I really enjoyed when he was throwing punches, the angles he was taking, and there's a lot of promise there. He comes from, I don't know what you know about Zahabi, but Zahabi has a lot of promise. His older brother is the head coach at TriStar, which is like the #1 gym in Canada and one of the top gyms in the world. So there's a lot of promise there. I don't think anyone was expecting him to look as poor as he did, but that could have just been nerves or who knows. Yeah, he very well lost the fight. I mean, he probably did. Here's the thing: no person, and we said this on the recap. No person from Canada lost a decision. The only times that a Canadian lost was they had to get finished. If it went to a decision and you were Canadian, you won the fight. Now, I'm not gonna read into it really, but there were some really close fights that just snuck into the Canadians' corner, and at least 2 of them I disagree with.
Dude, this is the statistics for the fight. Vieira had 109 strikes to 49 from Zahabi and 3 takedowns to Zahabi 0. That's a huge fucking difference. That's double and triple in 2 key categories.
But I'm trying to figure out, though, because, okay, so statistics are, let me just get the caveat out. Statistics are misleading because, one, it's about the amount of damage that's being landed and not the accumulation of strikes, right? So what matters is when you are striking, what those strikes are doing. So if you get 100 strikes versus my 50, but you have 50 leg kicks, and of my 50 punches, 35 of them are headshots, I won the fight, right? I won the fight in a real sense because I did way more damage than you, and my accuracy is probably much, much higher because your output is so much higher. Now, I remember watching that fight and getting to the end of it and going, well, obviously Zahabi lost. And I walked out of the room and I came back in and they were interviewing Zahabi. My wife was on the couch. I said, did Zahabi win? She's like, yeah, I think that's who that is, right? I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay, well, he won. I'm like, okay, I guess. I mean, it was a close fight. I mean, I'm not too mad about it. I picked him to win, so I'm glad he did. But the next one was the biggest surprise. I mean, Randa Marcos beating Carla Esparza by split decision again. I mean, if you're Canadian, you're winning on this card, and there's an argument for Carla Esparza. I do believe the right person won. I do believe that Randa Marcos won that fight. But it was, again, extremely close. But Randa Marcos looked how, again, you haven't been watching the UFC for the longest time. I don't know what you know about Randa, but this was a woman who was a very, very highly touted. She had wins on that season of The Ultimate Fighter. You know, she almost won it. She almost won The Ultimate Fighter. You know what I mean? She made it all the way pretty close to the end, and she beat some killers along the way. I mean, she has a win over Tisha Torres, which is crazy that some random person essentially beat, some random quote, beat Tisha Torres. I mean, that's nuts. So Randa looked how people thought she was going to look, right? And then Carla looked like someone who had taken a bunch of time off, which is exactly what happened. She had taken a bunch of time off. I don't know if it was against her will or not, but she had taken quite a bit of time off. So she looked like it. Randa looked how she was supposed to look this entire time, and Carla looked like someone who had ring rust. So that was great. And that's called, you know what we call that fight? That's called a parlay buster. I don't know if you've heard that phrase yet. That's called a parlay buster. So what a parlay buster is, you have on these fight cards, you know what a parlay is, right? If you're betting, you bet 3 people at one time and you get plus odds.
Yeah.
So Yeah, that's what a parlay is. Okay, so a parlay buster is this like person that you just tack on to every parlay because them winning is so obvious. You're like, oh, duh, that person's going to win. So you just tack them onto every parlay to help get better odds, right?
Yeah.
She's a parlay buster.
Everyone in the UK, you're talking about an accumulator. In England, on the Paddy Power website that I use, we call that an accumulator. So, for example, if one fighter lost, it's over. You're done, aren't you? Correct? Yeah, that's called an accumulator.
So this would be an accumulator buster. So this would be everybody throws it on their accumulator or their parlay because it's the win seems so obvious, and then they lose, and all these parlays all around the world just start collapsing because it seemed like such an obvious play. You're like, how can Randa Marcos come in here and beat Carla Esparza? Like, that's just crazy. There's no way she's going to do that. Well, she did it, and she looked pretty fucking awesome doing so. I mean, that Gary, what's his name? Have interviewed the man, Gary Goodrich. That Gary Goodrich move she did where she got, it's like an inverted crucifix where she traps her arms, then elbows her in the face. Do you remember that part of it? She like trapped her arms, she was on her body. Just crazy. I mean, good for her.
Yeah, that was really, that was amazing.
I think it's called an inverted. You need to watch a fight. You can pull it up right now because it lasts like 15 seconds. But it's Gary Goodrich against a guy named Paul something. I'm not 100% sure what his name is. But it's it's an inverted crucifix, and he elbows the guy until he gets knocked out.
And if you're listening and you're watching this and on the YouTube channel and you're thinking, "What? I'm a big wrestling fan, and I'm just getting to MMA." A crucifix is like the crucifix cradle that they cover in pro wrestling. It's the exact same. So he basically in the crucifix position, and then boom, boom, boom. It was really sweet. It was really, really good.
Yeah, the biggest one though. I'm gonna look up the guys. I'm gonna look up who the fight was. The craziest one was Gary Goodrich versus Paul Herrera. That's what it was. Absolute. You need to go watch that. Like as soon as you get the chance. 30 seconds.
Is it on YouTube?
It is. I'm going to send you a link right now. It is absolutely insane. Yeah, I'm going to send you a link so that way you don't have to look for it. But this is the kind of the advent. It's not the advent. Obviously, it happened. It had happened before this. But this is one of the first times that I remember it happening like mainstream, and I haven't seen anything like this ever happen again.
Yes.
This was early Pride. This was UFC. This was early UFC.
Oh, that is brutal. That is savage.
So that's the same thing that she got caught in. Except this is a massive man doing it.
Yeah.
Isn't that nuts?
That is awesome.
Yeah, that is one of the greatest things that I've ever seen. The Gary Goodrich Paul Herrera thing. So it takes 30 seconds, guys. Go watch the video.
That was awesome.
But what else was there? I mean, obviously, the Ponzinibbio fight, Talib fight was forgettable. The elbow that Paul Felder landed against Alex Ricci, that short jabbing elbow he landed, he threw the elbow like it was a punch. I don't know if you remember that one, but he goes to set up a punch, and then incredible elbow. That's something that they do at Duke Rufus, the gym he trains out of. Sarah McMahon mopped the floor with Gina Manzani, but again, when you're 4-1 or 3-1 going up against Sarah McMahon in your UFC debut, what the hell did you think was going to happen? I mean, what was supposed to happen is what happened.
Before you move on,
go ahead.
I've touched on this with every co-host. Now, Keith from the MMA Takeover yesterday was very happy with this. So on this channel, me and my co-hosts for the Wrestling AM show, we have internet wives. Okay, so my wrestling internet wife is called Peyton Royce. Okay, now my MMA internet wife is Sarah McMahon because she seems so nice. She's beautiful, but she seems so nice and a lovely person. She just seems like a really great person. And Keith, it's now Keith's goal to get Sarah McMahon on this show. That's his goal.
We can make it happen. I could make it happen. Keith and I will team up. We'll get Sarah McMahon on the show.
Dude, you just be seeing me in the corner like.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, why? Why just Sarah Man on the show? Oh, I called her my internet wife. No, this was what Keith proposed. Because remember, we're talking about me needing to get into a fight. So we're basically me and Sarah. She's going to come over to England, and we're going to go into a bar. Now we're going to fight a man and a woman who are being a dick. So she beats up the woman. Now I try and beat up the man. Now if that man starts beating the shit out of me too much, it's fine because Sarah can just start beating the shit out of the man. Perfect.
Is this
perfect.
man Chav?
Yeah, I hate chavs. Of course, I'll go for the chav.
Okay.
He'll probably be in. He'll probably be in Reebok, so he'll be easy.
There you go. He's a Reebok Chav. So
Reebok chav.
I'm so glad I learned that today. You need to teach me one like British-ism, I guess, or Londonism, or Britanism, whatever it is. You need to teach me one of those every time I come on. I want to learn one new word every time I come on.
Okay, I've already got my idea for next week, but I'll save that for next week. So I could put it on the education part now as well on the iTunes.
There you go, right? You can help. I don't know if that'll increase clicks or decrease clicks.
It'll probably increase it because then people educational. What's MMA?
They do. Yeah, I guess that is true. Most of the podcasts I listen to are probably like educational.
Exactly, and it will look smart as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, right.
Where were you? You were in the middle of breaking down the card.
Oh, you're cool. I mean, I'm just going through it real quick, just that way you didn't have to mess with it, and we could just find something to talk about. I'm going to skip the Elias Theodorou fight because I want to talk about that more. But Gavin Tucker facing Sam Sicilia, probably one of the best fights on the card. Gavin Tucker looked amazing. He looked like a guy who is going to have a long career in the UFC, man. At least for right now. I mean, it's hard to judge it too much. He did beat up Sam Sicilia, so let's pump the brakes, right? Sam Sicilia, everybody calm down. However, he beat Sam Sicilia in a way that if you're that good, you're supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like, and this is something that's hard to explain, I think. If you're fighting someone that's not very good, it's really easy to discount the win and go, yeah, but you fought a nobody. But if in fighting a nobody, you mop the floor with them, then that means something, right? Because it means that you're so much above that level. So, and that's a big deal. Like, that's worth talking about. By the way, there's a wicked, wicked storm going on right now. So if I just disappear, I'm fine. It's probably because my power went out. So just FYI, there's like a wicked storm. I can hear the wind through my headphones.
That always happens in America because all the coaches usually have are American, and I know most of them say stuff like that. If we have a storm, we're fine. I don't know if we have just better cables or our storms aren't as bad, but
I don't know. I would imagine I would imagine if there's a god, that god probably hates America, so we probably just get worse storms.
It's just yeah, I can hear that a little bit now, but. In England, we get them pretty bad, like thunderstorms, as you expect, because it always rains in England. But it never cuts power, ever. It could be like pissing down with rain outside, and you wouldn't matter. No?
I haven't had our power go out in a while. I've never had it go out because we just bought this house back in June. So we've never had the power go out here. I had the power go out like once in the apartment we had before this. It doesn't go out very often, but it is storming pretty wild right now. And I like for me personally, I live really far away from the power line. So like the power line's in our backyard, but I have a very large backyard. So anytime you have that much space in between the line and there's wind, you're inviting there to be a problem. Just the nature of physics, there's more space there to have something go wrong. So I'm concerned the power's going to go out at some point, but hopefully not tonight. But the storms are pretty wicked. This is like one of the worst storms we're going to have for a while. So we'll see. I mean, we'll be fine, but
dude, just do what I do. Just blame Vince McMahon. It works for me.
I blame Dana White. I blame Dana White for everything. But yeah, Gavin Tucker, to get back on that one, he just good for him, man. Good for him. I cannot wait to see what he does in the future. Conversely, a guy who I don't care what he does in the future is Johnny Hendricks gets a big win over Hector Lombard, but like file that in the who gives a shit category.
Dude, this guy,
whatever.
He looks like any old Tom, Dick, and Harry. He who gives a shit.
When I listen to him talk, I think I talked about this on the news podcast too, but when I listen to Johnny Hendricks talk, it just hurts my heart. He's so stupid. He's so stupid. I'm sorry, but like when he was talking after that fight, my initial thing, and I'm sure I've thought this before, but I ate a bag of peanuts. I bought like an individual thing of peanuts the other day. And on the back of the peanut bag, it says, "Caution, may contain nuts." And I of course, like, that's so stupid. Like, that's so dumb. And then you hear Johnny Hendricks talk, and you're like, that's the reason why a peanut bag has to say "may contain nuts," because Johnny Hendricks exists. Oh man, him and Travis Brown are just like two of the like.
Two peas in a pod, as we say in England. Jesus. 2 peas in a pod.
Absolutely 2 peas in a pod. That is Derek Lewis versus Travis Brown. Let's just skip on past that. Derek Lewis, Travis Brown. Yeah, Derek Lewis. Huge win. Proved a lot. Obviously, we could talk about his post-fight antics some more if you'd like, but I think we've moved on past that. But in the fight itself, he showed something that I think everybody needed to see. I know I needed to see it. I needed to see him, first of all, claw back from deep, deep, deep adversity. I mean, he should have got finished in the first round. And honestly, had he been fighting someone who even just has slightly more intelligence than Travis Brown, he probably would have got finished. But Travis Brown has such low ring IQ, and probably real life IQ, but certainly ring IQ, that he wasn't able to finish the fight. I mean, you're just like, how are you not like continuously going to the body over and over and over and over and over? And then he does that thing where he backs up against the fence. I don't know. Maybe I'm being I am being too judgmental, but maybe I'm just crazy. But like, how did he not finish that fight? I can't even fathom it. He should have finished the fight. And not only does he not finish it, but then he himself gets finished in the second round. So but anyway, great to see from Derek Lewis. So good for him. And then the fight I don't want to talk about is Elias Theodorou, Cesar Fiera. I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm not even going to talk about it.
Why? What was wrong?
I don't like Cesar or Elias Theodorou, and I get it. Like okay. So let me say positive things. Positive things. He's the most attractive man I've seen in my entire life. He's very, very good at promotion. Extremely good at promotion. And although a lot of that I think has to do with the confidence of being that good looking, right? If you're that good, if I was walking around looking like that, I would be the king of marketing. If I looked that good, I'd be the fucking president, dude. Like that would give me because I already have a lot of confidence and I'm an ugly motherfucker. So if I had the looks to match the confidence, boy, I'd be a CEO. But yeah, so I'll say the positive things. Not just about his looks, but the positive things. He's extremely good at marketing, extremely good at self-promotion. His Twitter game is on point. He's funny. He interacts with fans probably more than any other fighter. He's extremely interactive with his fans. So good for him, man. Like, all the best. I hate his fighting style. It's just so ugly and unimposing, and he kind
of bows down a little bit, doesn't he? He kind of bows
so
down
weird. And the butt wiggle that he does, where he does that like jockey in place thing. I really, really am not a fan. I don't. And we were kind of worried about this. I think on the breakdown we talked about it. Like at least Sean, I'll give credit where credit is due. One of the things that Sean said is like, guys, Elias Theodorou has a tendency to make fights really, really ugly, boring fights. And bless his heart, that's exactly what happened. You know, I don't know what it's going to take to beat Theodorou again, other than just pure aggression, because there's nothing to be afraid of. He doesn't have the power to knock you out. He doesn't have good submission prowess. So if he fights a fighter who isn't nearly as scared as Cesar is, because Cesar has a very bad chin. I don't know what you know about Cesar Fiera, but Cesar Fiera has a historically bad chin. Very, very, a strong gust of wind could knock him out. So because of that, he has become very, very reserved. and he doesn't kind of move in a lot. That was the most aggressive I've ever seen him. But I think to beat a guy like Theodorou, you have to be very like if Theodorou goes up against a guy like Alex Nicholson, that's where he's going to have problems. A guy who's going to plod forward the entire time, who's going to take control of the octagon, and who's not scared of you. That kind of guy is going to wipe the floor with Theodorou. So I hope they make that fight next because I want to see that. UFC, if you're listening, Elias Theodorou versus Alex Nicholson. So there we go. See if we can make that happen.
It will. It will. I'm happy that's finished now. That's the last time I ever have to talk about UFC Halifax ever again.
At least, are you glad that I kind of took control and just got through it real quick?
Yeah, otherwise, the title would have been a bit waste of time. UFC Halifax.
Yeah, right.
I might when I do it on iTunes, I might put mini UFC Halifax recap. It's probably the best idea. But it's just the thing is, like, I normally don't have an issue with it. Like the UFC 208, I didn't have an issue with it. I just found it this week was just like I don't want to talk about it anymore. Like maybe it's just because not a lot really happened because it was in Canada. No disrespect to Canadians, but it was kind of irrelevant.
A lot of decisions.
Like nothing big happened. It was a good fight, some good fights. It's just nothing really like affects the rankings or affects title shots or anything like that.
Yeah,
Sadly.
I mean, I would say I'm not looking at it, of course. But I would say that probably the most important fights to happen there was obviously the Derek Lewis Travis Brown. This immediately propels Derek Lewis into a title contending fight. So he's probably going to fight somebody, and then after that fight for the title, that's probably what's going to happen. Or maybe he's 2 fights away from a title shot. I don't know. He's at least 1 away. If he wins that fight by finish, he probably gets an immediate title shot. So that's probably the most important thing to happen. A second to that was probably Gavin Tucker, just because he's a really interesting prospect. I'm excited to see where he's going to go. Other than that, just kind of throw the card away. I mean, yeah, there really wasn't anything. There were some good fights and there was some like vaguely important things. But as far as like big storylines are concerned, yeah, it's basically, hey, Gavin Tucker's here and he looks like he's legit, and Derek Lewis is going to fight for the title here pretty soon. That's about it.
If it wasn't, imagine if it wasn't for Derek Lewis's post fight, we wouldn't have nothing to talk about. We'd have finished 20 minutes ago.
We would have finished 20 minutes ago. Yep, absolutely.
So
I mean,
in theory, kind of same way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the Johnny Hendricks thing, I know I just kind of blew it off, but he did get a win, and that's a guy who very well could fight GSP. That's
in Bellator.
No, I mean,
right.
I mean, it does reek of Bellator for sure. That sounds like a GSP goes on a 2-fight losing streak. The UFC lets him out of his contract finally. He goes over to Bellator, and Johnny Hendricks is gone, and he fight. Yeah, that is what that sounds like. That sounds like a fight you see in 3 years. Is GSP?
We were talking about. We legit said I think we said the exact same thing yesterday. Me and Keith said the exact same thing. We were talking about Bellator future cards. You know, Anderson Silva losing it and then going to Bellator. Poor Bellator. But we were talking about Bellator yesterday about them just trying to grab the casuals with that, and it just, you know, bless their cottons. It might work one day, but I said this to him yesterday. All it will take is one billionaire to take Bellator, get some fighters in good money contracts on good TV deal. And they have that great TV deal on Spike, because that is a really good TV deal. And then boom, they're off to the races. But until then, they won't ever be real competition to UFC.
Excuse me. Well, Spike is rebranding, which is going to be even better because they're rebranding to the Paramount Network, which Paramount is was like a really big movie thing. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, you've probably heard of Paramount or seen Paramount at the beginning of movies. But anyway, they're becoming the Paramount Network, and part of the rebranding is they're really hyper focusing in on about Bellator. The other thing is Bellator is owned by Viacom, which is a multi-billion-dollar organization.
Okay. I didn't realize.
So, well, that's the reason why Bellator is able to get guys like Fedor and get the Chael Sonnens of the world to fight for them, and keep Phil Davis around, and, you know, lure a guy like Rory McDonald over, you know, and keep a guy like Michael Venom Page around. You know, they do have a lot of backing there, and their viewership is going up. Bellator lost their main event. Their main event. I don't know if did anyone tell you about this? They had a main event scheduled. Fedor versus Matt Mitrione. Yep, Fedor versus Matt Mitrione. Hours before the fight, it got canceled, and they still almost had as many views as the UFC did on Fox. On FS1.
Can you read? I'm a really big numbers guy. Like, I did business at my sixth form, which is kind of like a mini university for you guys in America. I'm fascinated by numbers. What was the viewership for the UFC on Sunday and the Bellator?
Okay, so I saw it on Twitter. And I'm obviously not gonna be able to find that now. Let me see if I can type in something to see if that'll. UFC Halifax numbers. I can look up Bellator's. Because unfortunately, man, I wish I wish I would have screenshotted that, because the numbers were so much closer than what you think.
I've got the UFC viewership. Oh, you okay with that? That was fucking scary.
Yeah, did you hear that?
Yeah, that was big.
Was crazy.
Right, what have they got? They averaged 907,000 viewers. That's not that high. That's really not that high.
For a free card. That was UFC Halifax?
Yeah, they got the overnight was 807. They peaked at 1.05 million viewers. And the show averaged, which is the 3-hour average, 907,000. Now I got Bellator on there, and let me get the Bellator one up as well. That's UFC Halifax. Bellator did.
My guess is about 850. I'm trying to think of what the number was. Was it 175? No, 173. Let me see if that was it. I think it was 1. Nope. I have no idea what the number of the card was.
UFC Halifax drew 907,000, and Bellator did 807,000.
There you go. I mean, that's what I'm saying. But that number, okay, so you have to imagine, okay, that's the number. Okay, that's how, and that's relatively close. Guess it's not that close, but you know what I mean? Like, that's relatively close.
Dude, no,
that's a small city. Okay, and so think of how close that is compared to the Bellator lost their main event.
Yeah,
they didn't have a main event, and they still pulled that viewership. I was going to watch it, and when that got canceled, I didn't watch it. So I was one of those people, right? I'd have been one more view. So imagine how many of me there were who were going to watch that card and decided not to.
Would that have been a big deal if they beat UFC at the weekend? Would that have been a major deal?
Huge. I think that would have been huge. I don't know how often it's happened, but I think personally that would have been huge.
Now, when's the next? There's a Bellator card tonight, if I'm correct.
I think so. Probably starting at 9. Although Bellator does this thing where they stagger. What do they call it? Where it's like it's pre-recorded, but then they air it.
Oh, pre-taped.
I'm trying to think.
Pre-taped. They pre-tape it. Yeah,
so starting in 30 minutes. It says it's live. I have a sneaking. I don't know if it is in fact live though.
Blake from Loaded Joe's was live tweeting it. That might have been the prelims, but
he might have been live tweeting Bama.
Yeah, Bama. That used to be on Channel 5 in the UK, which is funny enough. The Channel 5 is number 5 on the TV. That's a fucking bad joke. And since then, they used to be live on there. But Channel 5's picked up Bellator. But the issue is it's so damn far behind, and it pisses me the fuck off. Like, so dated.
Yes, Bellator 173, I'm almost positive has already happened. But they're just not airing it until 9 o'clock tonight. Let me look. Yeah, that's 100%. Sorry, it's already happened. So I can tell you every single result if you'd like to know.
No. I might watch that. I might watch it. I might watch it on the weekend because there's nothing for me to watch on the weekend, so I might watch it on Saturday night.
Yeah,
and then maybe
I'm I'm looking over the results right now. One thing is a surprise to me, just because I know the person's name and they did not win, so that's always a surprise in a place like Bellator. That person comes from a really big gym, but okay. Other than that, everything else that happened, I think, was pretty what I'd imagine.
Yeah, I might give that because I remember when I watched it for the Ortiz and Sonnen, it felt a bit more quick. I don't know if you feel that it feels quicker, like it feels more fast paced.
Bellator moves a little quicker. I agree. I really hate Fox Sports 1 spacing. I hate it. Big Fox is worse when it's on Big Fox, which is like our normal Fox. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, like just the normal.
I know.
Big Fox. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yep.
I don't know what stuff is that like. I don't know what stuff is a language barrier.
No. I understand. I understand American television. I understand all the networks and stuff. I understand the view, how all that works. I just don't get your culture because there's so much different culture in so many different states. It just goes over my mind.
Oh, South. The people from the South are so dramatically different than people from like the Midwest. The people from the Midwest are so different than people like Keith. Keith and I might as well grow up in two different countries. I mean, just compare our cultures, even just our voices. Listen to how different we sound. And then get Blake on. And Blake, between Blake, me, and Keith, you're running the gamut, man. You got one guy from Austin, Texas. You got one guy from New England. You got me living in the Midwest, living in Ohio. Pretty crazy. Yeah, you're running the gamut of cultures.
And then I have a guy from Virginia, usually come on. Then I have a guy from Canada. I have a guy from Tokyo. Myself in England. We scour the globe for the best talent in the world.
So you could say that Kocosports is a global operation.
Of course, it is a global operation. Yeah, you talked about that with Keith because a couple of weeks back. So I remember him being pissed off. He's no longer a global one.
Right.
So with that in mind, would you like to shillingly promote yourself?
Oh, I love promoting myself. This is my favorite thing to do. All right, guys, definitely check out the podcast. If you are just now seeing me for the first time, you're welcome. Go to Twitter to see more of me. Go to Facebook to see more of me. Just type in Loudmouth MMA. You should be able to find me. Go check out the new website. The website is up and running, and it looks great. I made it myself, so if there's anything you don't like, keep it to yourself. It's at loudmouthmma.com. You can email me at kyle@loudmouthmma.com. If you do have any suggestions, I'm all completely open to them. This is all facade. I'm just kidding. I'm a nice, fun-loving guy, and I want as much criticism as humanly possible because that's how you get better. So if there's anything you think I could do better, get at me. Let me know. The podcast can be found pretty much anywhere you listen to a podcast. Primarily, though, of course, iTunes, SoundCloud are probably the top two. Stitcher as well. Those are probably the top three. I don't really care where you listen as long as you're listening. So that's all for me, man. Again, every Friday I'm here. I love it. I look forward to this. I really do. This is something every week I look forward to coming on. So I will see you again, same place, same time.
Of course, I'll see you next Friday. I felt bad yesterday. I said, see you next Thursday, and that actually spells to Keith on a Thursday, and that actually spells cunt. So I felt pretty bad. He didn't catch on. He didn't catch on because he's older than me. But when you're little, you go, oh, see you next Tuesday kind of thing. And I felt kind of rude. I felt kind of rude.
That's funny. I didn't know. Again, that might be something I've never heard of that in my life. That's funny.
Yeah, so when you're like 10 or 12, you're like, "Oh, see you next Tuesday." So that's what the chavs would. That's what the chavs would say anyway.
Ours is we did this thing where it was like read between the lines. I don't know if that's something you did because you're even younger than me. I'm not much older than. How old are you? You're like 22.
20.
20. You're young, man. Now I'm not that much older. I'm 27. So, and Keith is like, I think in his mid 30s, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he's like 32, 33, 35 maybe? I don't know. I don't know how old he is. But anyway, I'm 27. I'm not that much older. But we did, it was read between the lines where you'd go like this, and it was read between the lines of your fingers, like your middle fingers in between the two lines.
I see. Yeah.
That was our thing when I was a kid. We did not have See You Next Tuesday. That was not a thing.
Yeah, nowadays they just go fuck you, cunt. they haven't got time for this. They haven't got time for this.
Yeah,
They haven't
now
got
that's
time
what
for
they
that.
do. Yeah, right.
Jesus Christ. And thank you, everyone. If you're watching on iTunes or Stitcher, or if you're watching on the YouTube, appreciate it either way. Subscribe to both, like both, comment on both. Be awesome, be safe, and we'll both be catching your asses down the line.